Thank you, Brett. Thank you for everybody understanding. I just wasn't really in a great frame of mind yesterday to kind of do a signing day presser. I really struggled with it just because I know these kids have worked really hard to get to that day, and it's a culmination of a lot of hard work by our staff. I'd like to give Pat Hamilton, his crew, recruiting staff, just unbelievable kudos. This is probably in my coaching career one of the classes I'm most proud of. Just I always kind of just keep everybody on an even keel, but I do think there's a lot of work that went into this class. Very unique in the signing timing, right? To get this signing class to come in here the first Wednesday in December. Obviously, everything accelerated a little bit. But this has been a work in progress. A lot of these guys we've signed, we've been on for maybe 2, sometimes 3 years in the making to make all this happen. We actually had 9 flips in this class out of 21. So I promise you, I've never had that before. I think it's just kind of the sign of times. I think we gave up one, right? But we got 9 back, and just a lot of diligence. Again, Pat and his crew, just the details of the visits, the weekly communication with them, the added touch of everything from signing day to where we were to the way we handled them on their official visits. Just super excited. So a little side note before that, I know I haven't been able to address you guys in a while. I know we're going to get together on Sunday, but super excited to have 14 all Big Ten players get nominated and recognized. 11 of those 14 come back. So kind of an indication of not only the signing class, but our team overall got a lot of really talented players in addition to these guys that I think could be a huge factor into the 2025-2026 season. So very excited about the future going forward. A couple highlights, obviously offensively, have 11 guys in this class, 10 defensive guys, so a very balanced class, over 10 different states. 21 signees, 20 of those guys are high school players, 1 junior college. I think we will add a few more possibly before the class starts or before classes resume in January. That will be either junior college or possible portal guys that will definitely come onto our roster as well. So going through some transition of our roster. I'll kind of cover that more roster analysis of everybody outside of the signing class on Sunday, but super excited about this class for a variety of different reasons. I think it was headlined by our first commitment was Carson Boyd, who just was a guy that we were very intrigued with out of the get-go. I tried to push him to be our first commit just because I really wanted our quarterback to always be that guy that leads the class. And we did sign 2 quarterbacks in this class, but I think he took the forefront. I think just the leadership he's shown not only in his high school program but in his community and everything that goes into it. Super excited. Then all the way to yesterday, getting our last edition with John Forster, the guy that, again, same thing. We're on him for a really long time. Had him here on official visit. Him and his dad came in the spring, and then they came back with his mom and his brother for their official visit, and kind of a great indicator of what this place can do. They're coming in from New Jersey, don't really know a lot about us, and from the time they hit campus that very first time to the call I got yesterday when they were going to flip and come our way to show how powerful Illinois can be once we get kids on campus. I always tell our coaches, your main mission and goal is to get them on campus and then let Illinois sell itself. And I think there's several examples during this signing class of that case in point. I think that's why we flipped 9 guys that, no matter if they were a decommitment from a Power 5, another Big Ten school, maybe even we had an in-state flip from Illinois State, right? Like, I really don't care where they're coming from. If someone fits our mold, if someone hits our recipe of success, we're going to recruit them. I look right now, I see our defense returning next year has a strength of our safety group, right? And you look at Miles Scott, who was a non-recruited student athlete that was a walk-on that earned a scholarship. Matt Bailey, we were the only school to offer him in the United States of America. And Mac Rosetich is only Division I offer. And those 3 guys returning in that safety core for our program next year are literally, I think, not only one of the best players in our program, but possibly in this conference. So I think the power of signing is whatever people think of you today, right? And that signing day is behind you, right? And now you just got to build your reputation for what's in front of you. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's blind to say that, obviously this signing class versus the one that we hadn't even won a game yet, or even after our first year to go 5-7, we could talk about what's going to happen, but I think now it's real. I think it's tangible. To be honest, you guys know this, right? To cover us, like, a lot of these guys talked about the environment of home games, and I think that was a really, really big deal. For a guy, Grant Bierman, who we had offered a long time ago, there's a lot of interest on him. He committed a little bit early to Purdue, right? And to flip that at the end, we had never given up on him, continued to talk to him. I remember coming into a meeting, I don't know if it was maybe if it was August or if it was September, we had resumed communication with Grant, right? And then we got him over for a game and saw that unfold. And then, I know he really struggled with it. We recruit good kids. And I think when they struggle to leave the school they're committed to, it actually speaks volumes to me because I know they care. I think you got to have kids that care. So yeah, I think that's a big factor into it because now it's tangible and it's real. Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes back to the way that I was raised, right? I was raised in an environment where we were part Betsy Berry, Brett Brandy, right? The five Bs, and like I was always compared to my brothers, and that always meant the world to me because I loved my brothers and I respected who they were. So I've kind of carried that forward. I don't know really when it really manifested. I know we recruited a set of twins, the Quaker twins, when I was at the University of Iowa, and I remember Kirk kind of talking about it, or I'm sorry, Coach Fry talking about it, DNA and what it is. I played with a guy by the name of Jimmy Hartley, whose brother Chuck played. Four sons all played Division I football, and I kind of formulated my thoughts early on in my career. But as a head coach, I've always said nothing beats DNA. When we recruited J.J. Watt, when we recruited T.J. Watt and Derek Watt, like it manifested right in front of me. So this year to sign three brothers is pretty awesome, right? Two current ones, and then obviously to sign Shawnee. I always tell Johnny we finally got a good athlete in the program from the Newton family, but Shawnee is an incredible reflection of his family, but he's also Shawnee Newton for a reason, right? They all have very similar names, as you guys know, but like Shawnee is Shawnee, and he's a guy. I think Taiwan is Taiwan. He's a lot like his dad and his brother, but he's got his own set of principles and all the good. And Zanai, it's crazy when I show you the plays. He runs. I don't know if Xavier runs like him or he runs like Xavier, but it's like it's just uncanny the way they look. But I think especially when you have a set of parents that raise kids a certain way, one of the most intangible things we always try to find from our kids is how are they going to handle adversity, right? And I mean, Xavier is a walking example of adversity with an ACL tear and some struggles that he's went through. That I have a feeling that if Zanai sees those same things, I know what the action is going to be. And Taiwan is actually he is the younger brother, but he's not the little brother, right? So when he walked in my room, and I'm like, oh, we got a little size here, right? Like I think that was kind of that moment where you kind of got a feel that's pretty awesome. And Shawnee, I remember the first time I ever saw his brother that plays at Toledo. I remember Coach Candle said he calls him a skinny Johnny, right? Because like he looks just like Johnny in the face. And then Shawnee came in, and Shawnee's kind of a combo platter of everybody, right? So yeah, I couldn't be more excited to add three brothers. Guys from what? Yeah. I really liked his class for two reasons. They kind of are the guys that we really targeted and went after. I would tell you, I was on the phone just because I obviously talked about our success. I was on the phone until 11:30 the night before trying to flip another one that unfortunately didn't come our way. But I was trying like heck, because I had targeted him early on and unfortunately weren't able to turn it. But we were relentless on our kids from Illinois. I think a great example is that Logan Farrell, right? Like he's a guy that even though he had committed somewhere else, we stayed in constant contact. And, when Logan finally flipped, I remember his dad telling me specifically, like, listen, no matter when it was, how it came about, Robbie Disher and Bart Miller were in constant contact with him and his family. And I remember when Logan went through the surgery, I talked to him the night before the surgery and the day after the surgery. And I don't know if that other place was right. No, obviously they had transition, but I think the thing we've demonstrated to Illinois coaches, Illinois players, is we're going to be built on them. And I think this class really shows it. And then I would tell you this: I'm going to show obviously film, but I had an affection for Braden Trimble by seeing him in camp over the last couple of years and seeing him on film. But when I went and watched him in a high school playoff game and I saw live what he brings to the table beyond what you see on film, that made me be reassured even more about the kind of kids we're getting. Oh yeah, for sure. I think maybe Illinois Chicago is always going to be over recruited in my opinion. Like everybody comes in, it's an easy stop. They know there's a lot of good players, but what began to happen, with Braden Trimble's emergence, right? Like he started getting national attention, and he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong, but I think now all of a sudden they're in there and they're like, hey, these players that we're playing against are really good players from downstate. Aiden Lawfrey was a Big Ten Player of the Week, right, from Little Gibson City, and really it got down to us in Iowa. I think if Aiden was getting recruited right now, we probably would have battled 10, 12, 15 other Big Ten schools on him just because of what we've been able to do. Yes. Yeah. 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 So full transparency. Started recruiting Shawnee as soon as I knew Shawnee existed. Right. When I'm around Johnny, I'm like, okay, if there's another one, let's get him. Right. And then Clearwater Central Catholic, like coach has been very. Actually, it's really cool. Those guys are playing tonight. Right. Like Shawnee's playing against Cardinal Newman, which there's 3 teammates on that field tonight, which is absolutely awesome. But you watch Shawnee's film and you're like, wow, right? Like, what can he do, right? Dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's obviously got great vision. And then he came on his visit and expressed to me how bad he wanted to play quarterback. I had told Carson that he would be the only. I've traditionally in my, if you catch my coach, follow my coaching career for 16 years, I've never double signed quarterbacks, and it's very something I really believe in. But after talking to Shawnee, he expressed that's what he wanted to start with and what he wanted to try and what he wanted to do. And if you pop on the film, there's no reason to believe that he can't. So I called Carson and his family and explained to him what was going to happen, why it was going to happen, and kind of just open transparency. I think is always the best thing. Communication is key to success. So that's how it manifested, and that's what's going to start with, and where it goes. But I would say I would the people. It was funny. So the head coach of Cardinal Newman is a guy. It sounds like a joke. I've said it before. Jack Daniels is the head coach, right? So he called me on Monday. We were talking because he started to prep for film, and he's like, "Holy cow, is your quarterback awesome?" And I thought they were playing a school in Orlando, so I thought he was talking about another kid of ours that's in a later class. And then I found out he was playing CCC, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, and when coaches have played against him, I think a lot of them have told coach that he's literally one of the best players in the state of Florida. Like his accomplishments as a quarterback, his record in that county as a winning quarterback. It just, if you got a quarterback, as we saw this year, if you got a quarterback that can have the faith of your team and the faith of those around him, like you can do a lot of really good things. And I think that's what Shawnee brings. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a work in progress, to be honest. Like, we are trying. I literally was on a conference call. I'm sorry. I just literally ran from practice to an NCAA Zoom call to this. And I was literally on a Zoom call this morning with an oversight committee that is still talking about the dynamics for this signing class. Right. And, I made the comparison, right. So I'm blessed to have a daughter that's 7 years old and going through this thing called new math. Right. Like, I don't even know what the hell it is. Right. Like, I know how to buy math and I know how to do a calculator, but this new math. And I think it's funny because what we're doing right now in college football all over the place is trying to do this new math with old techniques, right? Or however you want to say it. Like, we're trying to do things on our signing date, on the way they recruit, and we're mixing and matching. So one of the greatest travesties of this signing class, we signed 21 kids and I've never been in their home. This is the first time in 16 years that I've signed a kid that I've never been in their home. And that's a lot of kids, right? And I'm going to tell you, from the first time I ever went in James White's home and met his father, who was a police officer in Dade County, to the first home that I ever went into when I signed Mickey Turner, who's now the tight end coach at Illinois State, and I met his mom and dad, and to last year's class when I was able to go into the homes and meet all of the kids that I signed. It means a lot to me as a head coach to be in their home, to meet them, see them, understand where they came from, who they are. And this class, not just in my class, right, but every coach that's in the college football just signed a group of players he's never been in their home. And I think that's an absolute travesty. And I think it's on the NCAA because they made a bunch of rules. I was on a committee. I said, listen, you're going to sign a class in December that no head coach has ever been in their home. And they're all like looking at me. I'm like, you passed rules that prohibited us from being in their home. And they didn't even know they had done it. And I think that's the stuff that's crazy. So there's revenue share going to happen, but there aren't real answers. I mean, they're coaches. That's what I was getting frustrated. Like, I work at Illinois. I say with Illinois, but I'm competing against other schools in our conference and otherwise, and people are saying some things that are just outright complete baloney, BS, lies, and these kids don't know where the truth is. And I think that's the part. Some of these, it's National Signing Day, but a lot of places it's National Bank Day, right? Like, they just use money and they buy their class, right? And I think that's the fun thing about this year's class. Like, this team I'm on, I know what we spend in the revenue in NIL. I know our number and where it's at, and we're playing schools that are 3-4 times that much. You're talking $20 million on a roster, right? I see teams that are. I'm obviously having some fun on Twitter, but like I know there's some teams that are trying to get into college football playoffs that have spent over $20 million and they still can't get in. And I know we're at basically 25% of that, and and we're knocking on the door. That's why I get excited about going forward. If we all kind of use the same checkbook, I get really excited about where we can go. Yeah, it actually was something we said we were going to do. I just didn't want it to be just. I didn't want to just say take two running backs. I wanted to be the right running backs. And said kind of came onto the scene. We were very aware of John. There was a couple Midwest kids that we were heavily on, and obviously, I think the checkbook got involved in some of those. But whatever happened, all of a sudden we were with said, and then John kind of reopened, and I said, hey, if this is what we want to do, but also looking at our current roster. I have Caden, Aiden, and Josh, and then you have Khalil. I mean, that's four really good ones you feel good about. But if something happens to one of those, obviously Caden coming off an injury, I just felt it was important to have. And they're completely kind of two different running backs. Sed's a very dynamic, explosive, probably a third down, all explosive back, and I think John's more of an early down, all down back. But two different body types that I think is something you got to have.
That's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get you. Pat and I had conversations, and I wouldn't. The only thing that I said to him is let us kind of announce it together, and obviously put out there. But he will not be with us for the bowl game. He's going full speed ahead into his next chapter.